Hey, what's up and hello. This is everybody's second favorite professor coming at you live on tape with another tutorial video. Today's lesson 4 is going to be covering shape tweens. So previously we covered basic motion using classic tween. We covered clipping masks. Lesson 3 we talked about custom paths. And lesson 4 we're going to talk about shape tweens. So again, using the same document, we're going to make a new scene. And now, starting from layer 1, frame 1, we're actually going to type out our name again. And again, it doesn't matter the color. You can change it to whatever you want. So now what we're going to do is we're going to leave it as this. So remember before when we went to modify, break apart, it broke up the letters from it being a word, and then modify, break apart again, convert the letters to a shape. So now when we do a shape tween, it's going to be converting one shape to another shape. So also on the same layer, we're going to also type out our last name. And again, choosing a different color this time, but again, it doesn't matter whichever you choose. So again, doing the same thing, we're going to modify, break apart, individual letters, modify, break apart. It is now a shape. So when we go to our timeline, again, we're going to add 120 frames, 10 seconds, keyboard shortcut F5. And then we're going to go back to our scene 1. And then we're going to go back to layer 1, frame 1. And we're going to go to Insert, Create Shape Tween. Now, you will not get the option for shape tween unless you have shapes on that layer. And since we have two shapes being our first name and last name, it registers it as it being able to add a shape tween. So this transition is going to take 2 seconds. We're going to F6, insert a keyframe. So now there's nothing going on because we have the exact same shape at frame 1 that we do at frame 24. So we want our first name to morph into our last name. So we're going to start off at layer 1, frame 1. We're going to highlight and delete our last name. But as you can see, it's still there on frame 24 because it is a keyframe. And a keyframe denotes a change. So it doesn't exist up until this point. So now as you can see, it's morphing from the X, but we want the entire thing to morph. So in this instance, we want to click on the keyframe at 24, and this time highlight and delete our entire first name. So that way the program sees there's nothing else but our last name on here. So then we click back on layer 1, frame 1, and we hit enter. It's going to then morph into our last name. Now, the only issue is we can't really control how it morphs. So if you want our last name to morph back into our first name, we're going to have it stay static for 1 second. So insert F6 keyframe, and then we're going to insert another keyframe at, say, 7 seconds. And then we can go back to our first name, layer 1. We can Control C to copy it. And then we can paste it onto the keyframe at 7 seconds. And then we can simply delete our last name. So that starting off is going to be first, our first name morphs into our last name, stays static, and then our last name will morph back into our first name. So that's how you create a shape tween. Whatever object you bring onto the stage must be a shape. and then it also must morph into another shape on that second keyframe. So doing this with shapes versus type, I want to make a new layer, keeping everything the same. I'm going to click on our rectangle tool. Again, make sure our stroke is not active. I'm going to draw out a rectangle. Which is the shape. And then I'm going to insert, create shape tween. At the same amount of time, I'm going to, instead, you click on the oval, insert F6 keyframe, draw out a circle, and then I can delete my rectangle on this keyframe. And then I'm going to have it stay static for the same amount of time. So insert F6. And then at 7 seconds, insert F6 again. But this time I'm going to draw out a square. And then highlight the circle, delete the circle, so that when you play it, the square, the rectangle morphs into the circle, and then the circle morphs back into a square. So that's how you do it utilizing regular shapes. And that concludes the tutorial on how to make basic shape tweens using text or standard shapes in the program. Stay tuned for the next lesson, which will be covering swapping out graphics.